time back talking about Spicy Wolf Volume 11 Side Colors 2, and I can say for certain this one's really good. I think this one is better than the first Side Colors, mostly because of the last story. But let's actually get to talking about stories in this volume. You know what's crazy about this little illustration? I don't remember when this happened in the volume. It's been like a little over a week since I've read the first part. This one's pretty normal with just Holo sleeping. This one is also pretty normal. And we have this final one with younger Eve, or Fleur as they're calling her, which is her actual name. And for this volume, of course, there is no prologue, like the main story volumes. Even though I guess you can consider this main story, it is still canon. So these first two stories, let me go back to them. The Wolf and the Golden Promise and The Wolf and the Verdant Detour are both before Cole comes into the story, so before Volume 6. Well, I guess before Volume 5, and the last one is about Eve. So starting The Wolf and the Golden Promise. So I think I might be able to summarize this one pretty quickly. So it starts out almost like always with Holo and Lawrence on the road, and they come across a man trying to sell them some chicken. And the man leads them to their village, and it's a pretty new village in the scheme of things. And Lawrence sees this as an opportunity to capitalize and maybe trade with them. And this illustration is Holo asking if Lawrence is mad at her. And Lawrence is welcomed pretty warmly because most of the people in the village can't really write or read. So he helps them with a few things, and he gets to eat pretty good in return. Holo doing this also asks Lawrence if he likes playing the savior. So let me actually correct myself. They wanted Lawrence to do translation for them to read a church document they got. Also, Lawrence kind of wants to make a profit without the help of Holo here. But she's kind of showing that she wants to help him here by contributing. And nearing the end of this story, he does ask Holo to borrow some of her wisdom, figuring out territory for this new village. So this next part is a little weird if you don't understand the context. And so the plan for Holo and Lawrence to do is like set a landmark, something that everybody in the village will remember. So this boy volunteers to go up to Holo, but he doesn't really know why. She asks him to pray to face all the cardinal directions, north, south, east, and west. And as she's doing that, she randomly smacked him. A very hard slap, and it doesn't seem like she held back. And the crowd that had gathered around them started laughing because how out of place it was and how sudden it was. And so now they all remember that day and where they were at the time. No, he actually fell to his feet, huh? Really interesting way to set up a landmark or a memory. The boy's mother seems to feel pride from her son, I guess. His nose was also bloody. She really hit him very hard. Then after all that happens, seems like they have a feast. Lawrence asks his Holo after this if she wants a favor or not. And she tells Lawrence to write something in the Wise Wolf Holo's homecoming guide contract. Basically the contract that Holo and Lawrence set up to for Lawrence to take her to Yoitz. She in the end decides not to because Lawrence and both Holo don't believe they need a written contract. Lawrence talks about Holo's small chest here, and she slaps Lawrence just like she did that boy. She even compared Lawrence to him. Here's where the illustration is from. Now I'll never forget your smile. Now on to the second side story, The Wolf and the Verdant Detour. So Lawrence and Holo take this detour, as the title suggests, into this road in this forest. Their banter is always fun to read and watch. There's a lot of it here, but I don't feel like I have to comment on it. And at some point, it seems like they got lost. Well, Lawrence seems to have, but Holo remembers the way. And Lawrence feels obstinate. And they keep going further, and Lawrence seems to be pretty scared. Holo also says that he's pretty transparent. She even warned him. Holo compares Lawrence's stubbornness with a child, and that's why she's not angry when he's stubborn like this, not listening to Holo's warning. She also adds that she trips Lawrence up when they're talking because of his own foolishness. Lawrence also decided to make this detour himself to maybe entertain Holo, thinking it might cheer her up. And after a little idle conversation that Holo loves so much, she eventually falls asleep. And it ends with saying Lawrence passes, understanding what Holo wanted this whole time. And then we move on to the last and final story in this volume. This one being all about Eve and how she became who she was today. And this one takes up the rest of the volume, so it is pretty long. Even though this volume is actually the shortest so far, being 177 pages. So this side story tells a lot about Eve, or I guess I could call her Fleur for this. I'll just keep calling her Eve. This takes place after what happened with her husband, the one she was sold off to when her family went into financial debt or ruin. And she's learning how to be a merchant from her previous husband's right-hand man, you could say. And of course, at this point, her husband had already died after going into debt. So it's just Eve, Olar, the right-hand man, and her previous maid. Olar teaches her quite a bit about being a merchant. She doesn't understand a lot at this point, but during the volume, a little bit of time passes, and Eve gets into a deal with a man who is also previous nobility, just like her. Oh, Eve at this time also doesn't like being called Milady by both Olar and Petra, I think is her name. Her maid, I guess, because she's not really nobility anymore. And this deal or scheme to make money is to buy up some clothes and then sell them to get some profit from them. That's a small summary of what their deal is. And they both put money into that. And they go through this middleman too, which will be important a little bit later. And the clothes take 2 weeks to arrive. Oh yeah, and the name of the man that Eve is working with on this deal is Milton. They also talk about being nobility and falling from that. And Hans is the name of the middleman. They also made a contract at the time, Milton, Hans, and Eve, detailing the goods. And when the clothes or the goods finally come, they were supposed to be colorful clothes, but they ended up being black. And that was a surprise to both Eve and Milton. And they find out why, because the contract was written by Hans, and it seems like Hans set this up so they were buying bland black clothes. So basically Hans sold both Eve and Milton clothes that weren't supposed to be sold at that price. They were supposed to be buying clothes that were colorful, but they were buying just bland black clothes. Milton also doing this has a debt that he has to pay off. That's why he did this deal with Eve. And now he probably won't be able to pay off his debt. Both of them are actually silent when they hear this. Milton actually wanted to hurt Hans at the time, but he had someone protecting him. So this whole exchange ended with Hans making a really good profit and Eve and Milton losing a lot of money. So basically what happened to Lawrence in volume 2, when he bought the armor off that merchant and he went into debt because he couldn't sell it. And later on, Hans goes to Eve, where she's staying at, and basically tells her to give Milton's debt to him and sell that to him. And that would be betraying him, of course. And she decides not to do it. She decides not to sell him out. But even after this happens, Eve discovers that the clothes that they bought, the bland black ones, Milton took those and ran, showing that even Milton betrayed her, so that he can sell at least them and pay back some of his debt. This also shows that Milton never trusted her. And at this time, Olar says to Eve that she must be resolved, saying that she has to walk forward. And we also get a main reason why Olar helped Eve. He basically lived his dream through her. He wanted her to surpass all the merchants and make the nobles fall before his knees. But at this point, he is very old, and this is a really defining moment for Eve. After all this happened, look at her face. This illustration is one of the best I've seen so far. After losing a lot of money and being betrayed by her partner, she has to make a decision. She also gets angry after this, thinking that Olar is mocking her, being sick of getting treated like this, being treated as his child. Now she wants to decide for herself where she wants to go, and she says she's going to regain her resolve. So at this point, it's night, and Eve and Olar decide to chase after Milton on a horse, of course. And they come upon a slope where there was a hole, and Eve looks down that slope and sees a horse, a wagon, with the horse being motionless. And beneath the wagon was Milton, smeared with both mud and blood, saying that Eve caught up to him. He also asks for help, even though he was being very selfish. He says he'll never betray her again, saying we're both nobles, aren't we? Eve looks to see if the cargo was safe, and luckily it was. She also brings up the black clothes, saying to Milton that black clothes won't sell unless there's a funeral. And on his final legs, Milton said that he was pretending to be near death, but she found him out. Also saying that he never hesitated to deceive her, Eve being somebody who couldn't be rid of her nobility, her weakness of being of nobility. And she takes a nearby stake and stabs him, saying that she'll never forget the sensation as it sank through. A good merchant has neither blood nor tears, and they'll cover it up saying that he died, which he would have anyways, even if Eve didn't come after him. Eve now declares herself no longer noble. Milton gave her the final push towards being a merchant who could turn even the heart's peace into money, and she borrows his name, adding a few dots and lines to Milton. I don't know how Eve comes from Milton after adding a few dots and lines, but it's pretty cool. Eve Bolan the merchant. Eve Bolan had taken her first step toward profit. And that's where the final story of this volume ends. And what a good one. Oh yeah, in the after story, Hazakura talks about writing Eve's story and how she was a perfect idea he'd been wanting to use for a long time, saying that it's now interesting to go back and read volumes 8 and 9, which I might do after this. And he says he's going to do the same with Noranet, which I think it's going to be in the next Side Colors volume. Oh yeah, he also wrote this while season 2 was at its peak. But that's gonna be the end of this volume, volume 11, Side Colors 2. I really love that last side story of Eve. It does so much for her character. Basically, her backstory explained fully. It was really, really dark at the end too. She had to kill a man to get where she was today. I love Eve even more after this side story. As I said before, she's definitely my second favorite character in Spice and Wolf. She really has to go through quite a bit. She kind of reminds me of Haru from World and X, but I think she has it worse, honestly. They kind of go through similar things too. All in all, I love this volume, especially for Eve's backstory, how she became who she was today, and why she acts the way she does. So I think I'm gonna end it here, and as always, thanks for watching, and tune in next time to see what happens next.